Off to the crowd and let them know what you're about. And I've got a speaker phone set up here, but it's really good. You'd be surprised how well it catches
Okay.
audio.
I don't need to go stand next to it.
No,
Okay.
you're probably fine.
How much time do I have? A couple hours?
Let's give each guy 5 minutes here.
Okay.
We're 7 after, so.
Sounds good. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to come here tonight and for putting this on. I think this is the first time Elliot and I have actually been able to meet together in person and have a discussion about this role, so I'm excited for it. I got involved because, not because I had any aspiration to be involved in politics whatsoever, but my community asked me to run. And that's how I got involved in being the mayor, and that's how I got involved for running the state, because they saw the changes that we were able to make in Bram, in completely turning around its financial picture. We had our own misuse of public funds issues going on there, and I was at the forefront of those investigations and holding people accountable and fixing what was going wrong there. So in addition to that, besides being the mayor, I work full-time in government compliance and regulation. I'm a director of a licensing and investigations division. I work for the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, and I regulate their 2 casinos. So if you've ever lost money at Casino Hinckley or Grand Casino Mille Lacs, thank you for paying my salary. It put food on my table. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I appreciate that. So, but no, my job every single day, day in and day out, is to look for fraud, theft, and things of that nature, like the state auditor does. And so I do it every day, and not just the auditing piece of it, but leading a government agency, which is also an important point to make here. This is a full-time job, the state auditor, and so you have to be able to lead a government agency and know what they're doing in order to make good policy decisions in that regard. Aside from that, I'll be wrapping up my 21st year in the U.S. Air Force Reserve.
Thank you.
Thank
you for your service.
Wow.
Decorated combat veteran. I've got 3 combat deployments to the Middle East, 1 non-combat deployment to Malaysia. In the Air Force, I was an anti-terrorism officer. I did combat logistics. And now I do strategic planning. So I get to brief the 4-star on how to do logistics in the Pacific Theater, which is a current big picture issue that we have going on right now, as far as how do we deal with the threats in that area. So a lot of strategic background, a lot of leading efforts, leading agencies, and digging into internal issues. So that's just a little bit about me and why I'm running. Thanks for having me here again.
Well, hi everybody, Elliot Engen from Lionel Lakes. I'm a husband, I'm a father to Everett, who is 18 months old, and our little miracle baby. He was born 3 months early, emergency at-home birth on the bathroom floor. So yeah, it was crazy. He spent 75 days in the NICU, but he's doing awesome now. So I'm one of 77 million Gen Z Americans who can't even afford a house right now, because our taxes continue to climb, and it's going to finance a political machine that looks to serve itself. And this fraud is all the exact same stuff. It's baked into the cake. I've worked as a prosecution assistant in Hennepin and Ramsey counties. I've also worked as an NGO coordinator. Got to see how the guys who do it right really are. They're actually persecuted and starved of the funds that they could use to go and actually do that good work that Minnesotans need, but instead it's all going towards the fraudsters who aren't doing a single damn thing. And then currently I'm trained to be a volunteer firefighter in Lionel Lakes. Came from fire training just a couple hours ago. But it's really been eye-opening in my 2 terms in the Minnesota House to see how all of this is not by accident. This is all purposeful, and it's all been so blatant and obvious, and nobody has really reported on it or said anything up until now, when Democrats realize that they have an electoral risk on their hands when it comes to the fraud issue. I remember it was the first week that I was there. I'd just been sworn in, my first committee in public safety, and I watched $9 million fly out the door to a nonprofit that was created just 2 weeks prior to them receiving that money. And turns out that there were ties to Omar Fateh with that money. Public safety of all things, so violence interrupters in Minneapolis and such. I think I've proven in my 2 terms in the House to be a maverick, a renegade, and somebody who wants to disrupt a really broken institution that is our political system here in Minnesota. Like I said, it exists to serve itself, And the amount of money that I've seen fly out the door and go towards these nonprofits who are then turning around and cutting campaign checks to the same Democrats who financed them in the first place is really the crux of all of this fraud. And they're going to say that this is accidental, that there were oversights that should have been caught, but they've perpetuated this, and it's actually called cadre deployment, something that the Soviet Union went through under Lenin. And during that time, it was really important that they financed and funded the same people who were going to be taking out their political rivals. That's exactly what we're going through right now, and the number is not 1 billion, it's not 2 billion. I think it's closer to 8 or 9.
Yep.
And what we need is a state auditor who refuses to say no. I'm sorry, but the Minnesota Constitution, when it defines the roles of the auditor, it says that they shall serve no more than a four-year single term. That's it. So each term is going to be 4 years. The rest is all statutory. In 2015, the auditor, as an entire role, was gutted by the legislature under the Dayton administration when they said that counties, who the auditors are supposed to be going and making sure are crossing their T's and dotting their I's, they could actually go and work with a private CPA firm to go do their own auditing. Well, that's why we don't know right now that $10.4 million in FEMA money through Hennepin County is financing room, board, and maid services for illegal migrants in Bloomington. That's why we're not aware of the fact that 22% property tax increases are going to finance electoral ballot harvesting measures where nonprofits are contracted with the county auditor to go and collect ballots. That's where our money's going right now, guys. And while we, everyday Minnesotans, the working class, 68% of us are living paycheck to paycheck, the political class does not give a single damn. They're going to go and keep spending this money. So I'm going to be an absolute hawk in that office. We're going to be stopping in, conducting site visits, any place, anytime, anywhere. And if you're committing fraud here in the state of Minnesota, you should be damn scared of us. So that's a little bit about myself, and excited for the discussion and any questions you guys might have.
Go ahead, Lon.
I've got a question for each of you to answer, and that is that I keep hearing from the media, I've heard this for decades, that the auditor is supposed to audit the local governments.
Yep.
Can you audit this fraud at the state level
Yes, you can.
also? Are there any restrictions on that?
So right now in section 742.06, that lists kind of the defined jurisdictional aspects of the Office of the Auditor. And in that, it says that you can coordinate with other investigatory agencies, whether it be federal, county, or state, and you can conduct any investigations that help pursue fraud or fraudulent actions against the state of Minnesota. That's where I think the auditor's office really needs to step up, is be that watchdog, not just a watchdog, but an attack dog for this stuff.
Is that all the authority you need, or do you want more statutory authority?
Well, actually, it's funny that you say that. So Dan Wolgamott, one of my colleagues in the House, if you guys have heard of him, it's probably because he was visiting a municipal liquor store and decided to take a swig of some
wait till I
vodka.
get home.
Yeah, right. And actually, state auditors do oversee municipal liquor stores, so maybe he was just getting a job. But they've been drunk at the wheel at overseeing this fraud. Don't hand the keys to him. But he said that he'd like to see the state auditor's role expanded.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have him put his money where his mouth is. And on day one, I'm going to have a bill that allows us to not only have increased work with independent auditors, so that nobody knows where these audits are occurring or when they're going to be targeted. There's also going to be a fraud reclamation board that's tasked with going and actually seeking restitution payments from these fraudulent actors. And then AI integration. These are all things that he said he's on board with.
Good.
And so let's have him be co-author number 2 on the bill that I've already written up. And if it doesn't get passed, then Democrats are really just showing their true colors. But I'd like to see the role expanded, but there's already so much we can do, and we're not going to take no for an answer. If somebody tries to say that we've gone past our statutory authority, I would say maybe it's time that we have that, and somebody that wants to recoup Minnesota taxpayer dollars from criminals who are looking to steal it.
I'd like to hear Nate's answer too, but I want to follow up, because it seems to me, I'm not an auditor, but I've had a lot of accounting and I worked in the financial area for a long time. it seems to me that these outside auditors, if they're hired by you,
Yeah.
that could be a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you were going to audit all of the stuff in the state government, you would need a lot more people, but you could hire outside auditors if they are guided only by you, and that would be a quicker way to do it.
Well, since we've opened up our fraud reporting hotline on our website, we've had over 450 submissions from public employees that work within the state government alleging fraud that they've either brought forward
Yeah.
to their departments in the past
Jeez.
or been trying to sound the alarm on, and they're fearful of repercussion for having done so.
Yeah,
We need to turn Minnesotans into auditors as well.
yeah,
We need to arm and equip them with the exact same tools that you've been talking about, so that they can go and seek it out. And when they find it and they bring it to us and it leads to
Yeah.
Repercussion,
reward
they get
them.
rewarded for it.
Reward them
Yes.
and protect them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's-
So I would
So they-
actually offer a counterpoint to that. I think my friend Elliot here is slightly misinterpreting the statutes in the Constitution, the way that it describes the auditor's authority. The legislative auditor is the primary entity responsible for state agency oversight.
Yeah,
Now, the state auditor's office can and does audit state agencies and specific programs in state agencies that receive federal funding. They can assist if asked, but they generally don't have the lead or take the lead
asked by whom?
We're gonna take the lead.
by other agencies. So either the agency
By the
itself,
governor? Would the governor
by
do it?
anyone. Yeah, whoever has the ability to ask the state auditor to step in and help, but they don't take the lead because that oversight authority resides with the legislative auditor. That's why you see a lot of the auditing reports coming out in the news right now are actually coming from the legislative auditor, not the state auditor.
Well, I understand the need for a legislative audit. I think the federal government should do more of that. But the work that Elon Musk did
Mm-hmm.
is the kind of thing I think that you guys should do.
That's what I'm trying to bring to Minnesota, is a
Yeah.
Doge model. And when we go to those same state agencies that supposedly we don't have the jurisdiction to oversee, and we say, hey, we wanna look at the books. When they say no, we're at the bully pulpit, at a podium the next day alerting Minnesotans that there's a state agency that is financed and funded by you, the taxpayer, that doesn't wanna be transparent and accountable.
Yeah.
So I would agree with him on that point, that the state auditor's office does have the benefit of having its own independent media department. And as being an independently elected position, they're not accountable to anybody else. They're not
Right.
accountable to the
Right.
governor.
They
So they
can-
can do things like that.
They can audit too. I mean,
Yep, yep. The problem is, I don't think we should gloss over the limited scope that the state auditor's office actually has, because we want to manage expectations as well.
how is it
And
limited?
The state auditor's office primary responsibility is local government. You're correct. You're absolutely 100% correct on that.
Is that in the Constitution?
Yes.
It's in statute.
It's in statute.
Statute.
Yep. And so, they don't, well, some of these ideas sound great, and quite honestly, I wish Elliot would stay where he's at, because he has great ideas as a legislature, and I would love to work with him as a legislature on these, statutes. But as an auditor, we're not gonna have the ability to change the law. So we're gonna have to work with the legislature, because the legislature changes the law.
So to that point, I've tried to reform this broken institution from within for 3.5 years now,
Mhm.
2 terms in the House.
Yeah.
Let me tell you guys a story. I passed a bill, 131-2 off of the House floor that would have made it so that nonprofits who receive direct state appropriations cannot spend that money or spend any money in elections-related spending. They can't try to influence who gets elected, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's a conflict of interest, right? That bill passed. Democrats voted for it, Republicans did as well. It was included in our elections omnibus bill, and then in the dead of night, 24 hours before the end of session, it got cut out.
Yeah.
Because the powers that be said, nope, we can't have this go forward.
Yeah.
That's how I've come to understand the legislature. And so when we're hoping that the legislature does the right thing, well, you can hope in one hand, right? But at the end of the day, you need somebody who's going to say, no, enough is enough. This broken system, we're not going to abide by the broken rules that it pretends to play by. We're gonna go and conduct a site visit at a place that's getting $11.9 million, and then see if they're actually there and working.
Mhm.
And if they're not, we're gonna call them out. And we did this just a couple of weeks ago, 2 days prior to the Minneapolis mayoral election. when we saw that Omar Fateh's wife, who has a housing stabilization services organization, was completely, I mean, there was an empty building on a Monday at 10:30 in the morning. So maybe we just need an auditor who goes and does the work, stops pretending that somehow there's a self-imposed limitation that they must abide by. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay. Anybody else has, Paul?
Okay, so you do your audit, what is your enforcement mechanism when you say you want consequences? Is it anything other than the bully pulpit?
Well,
That goes to
there
both,
are.
take your turns.
Yep.
Nick, you wanna go
Yeah,
first
you
this
want
time?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear, what you're thinking, but, you know, statutorily and constitutionally, there is no, enforcement action really that the auditor can take. When they produce findings from an audit, they have to refer those findings to a prosecutorial entity. And there's only two constitutionally recognized prosecutorial entities in the state of Minnesota: the Attorney General's office or the county prosecutor. So they can raise their hand and wave the red flag and say, we found something, all they want, but it still falls on the prosecutor to prosecute that, that fraud. And so that is something, you know, going back to the last question about what the state auditor can actually do. We can't make laws, we can't change the laws, but we can utilize the systems and the authority that we have better. And one of the things that the state auditor's office can do is create a task force. They can't mandate it, because if it's budgetary, it has to go through the legislature for approval and funding. But they can bring all of the stakeholders and the players in the game to the same table and say, here's what we got, you know, here's what we're looking into, and here's what we found. Now you've got the law enforcement agencies, the criminal investigative agencies involved at the table. You've got the prosecutorial entity involved at the table, and working with any other auditing agencies that might have a play in the investigation or the findings. You bring them all to the same table and you have the same discussion at the same time, and who's gonna do what. And you increase your likelihood of successful prosecution. I've done that at the place where I work as a regulator, and I've improved my positive compliance rating outcome to 98%, meaning anytime I bring forth a compliance recommendation because we found something out of whack, 98% of the time I get a successful determination out of that. And that's something that we could do at the auditor's office.
It's
as
in the
well.
city or the tribe?
In the tribe.
So I would say that DHS also has a very high compliance rating right now, and we all know that the only thing that they do finance well is fraud, right? What we can do, but that actually brings teeth to the office, besides just referring for prosecution, is we can work alongside somebody by the name of Joe Thompson or whoever the federal attorney is who's going to be prosecuting these cases, and we can collect the evidence and the proof that puts these people away for good.
Yeah.
That's something that we're going to be taking an active role in. And beside that, while we don't make laws, while we don't write them as a state auditor, what we can do is work with our party to change the law. And I think it would be a pretty damn good story to say, hey, we went and asked Hennepin County for their internals after their independent audit, when their policing themselves came back, and they show some discrepancies here. We asked for those open books. They said no. So let's go and work with the legislature and try to pass a bill that says, hey, county, you don't do that, you don't get local government aid. How about that?
But to that point, that's exactly what I said in the last question. And you said, well, we can hope in one hand.
But that's applying pressure, and that public media
Right.
story, I'm sorry, but I don't want Mary Moriarty at my table when we're coming up with a brainstorming session as to how to create a task force. I don't want her at my table. I don't trust her. I want to go after these people.
But we're limited in that sense, because there's only two entities that we can actually bring to that table. And
But
unless
there-
it's federal funding, which they're already working with the federal prosecutor anyway.
Isn't there federal money in almost every program?
Yes. Yep.
So you can go to Joe Thompson?
Yep.
Correct.
But they're already doing that, so that's not a new solution.
And there's
But-
county money in damn near every program too.
But they're doing that without auditing. They're coming up with fraud evidence without an audit to initiate it.
There's evidence, it's just not being put out there. You can go to the state auditor's website
Yeah.
and look at all the reports that they've done on DHS Yeah, and you can see all the non-compliance ratings that they have in those DHS programs. But if you're not putting the information out there, there's no incentive to do anything
Well,
about it.
the goal of the Democrat state auditor currently is to mop up after their messes and pretend that everything is hunky-dory.
Absolutely.
Our job would be the exact opposite. Let's say in the eventuality, which I don't want to occur, that Tim Walz is our governor again, and Keith Ellison is our attorney general.
Yeah.
I want somebody that's gonna be going and headhunting all of the programs that are financing not only their corrupt and broken political system that keeps them reelected, but I wanna have a new story that is reaching the headlines on a daily basis of fraud that's gone on under their watch that they could have done something about and they didn't. In 2023, in the Judiciary Omnibus Bill, there was a single one-word change to a section of statute that went from requiring the Attorney General to prosecute NGO fraud in the state to may. Not must, not shall, may. So now, they're gonna only go after and use those same offices as political tools. We need to be the opposite to that. We need to go after them, and we need to say, look at all this fraud, if you don't prosecute it, you're setting yourself up for a political suicide. Because that's damn near what happened to Keith Ellison in 2022, why he almost lost. And that's how we're gonna make sure that Democrats don't maintain this same broken institution going forward.
And all that absolutely needs to happen, but the state auditor does not have the ability to change the law to make it happen.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the auditor will just be able to uncover all of the right details about
Correct.
where the money went and track it in and out the door and make sure what it was intended for is what it was used for.
Expose the
Correct.
fraud and the
Expose the
corruption.
fraud.
Yep.
And it depends on the level of the fraud and the avenues that that money is going through. Because again, it's all about their scope. They don't have, and keep that in mind so we have accurate expectations here. They don't have the authority to go to any state agency and audit them, audit their books and everything that they have for funding. They only have oversight of specific types of programs within the state government. So again, we're talking mostly
The
about
NGOs in
local
particular,
governments
so
and
like,
NGOs.
so anything that's going into, say, the Department of Education, that
Yep.
at the local level, my school district is
Yeah.
making use of a third party. Now, I've seen this at the federal level,
Mhm.
where the federal Department of Education, unfortunate, seems to have a spaghetti web of a variety of different NGOs that they fund
Yep.
for different curriculum purposes and so forth,
By
that are
design.
completely unaccountable. So I think having that accountability maybe locally would help us.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind about NGOs is it also depends when it comes to the NGOs. Some NGOs fall under the Attorney General's office and under charitable organizations, and some fall under the State Auditor's office. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make with folks is that in general, the overarching issue is our auditing apparatus statewide is so fragmented.
Purposely.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
part of the problem. It's just, everybody's so siloed, you know, and that's why I make it a point to really hammer in on what can the state auditor actually look at. Because they're only looking at these things by statute or constitution. Meanwhile, the fraud going on over here, they don't have sight of that.
We're not gonna work within a fragmented and broken system that's set up purposefully to allow for fraud. We are going to break that system by being a maverick, by being a visionary who doesn't think to even play by the same set of rules. And I think that's what our entire campaign is about. I don't wanna hear anymore as a Minnesotan who's trying to raise a family in this state, and who has to look at the end of the month to make sure that I can foot the bill, while all these people who are doing absolutely nothing are getting rich off of the system. I wanna go in and change that, because this is our last chance, guys. I genuinely believe that 2026 is our last chance to either make Minnesota a freezing Florida, or we can continue being the cold California that we currently are. And those same NGOs that are working alongside our local schools, I'm sorry, but if they're contracted with that school, then they're also receiving property tax dollars, which now deals with counties and deals with localities. Why can't we extend the jurisdiction and force the courts to say, no, you can't examine those rules, and then have Minnesotans wonder if that ruling comes back from the state Supreme Court, well, why would we not want that transparency? What are they hiding? Because right now in Minnesota, you can't even search who your local schools are contracted with.
Just to build into this and on something that I'm hearing, is there a mechanism or a way that you would envision, if you were elected to be the auditor, that you could take this siloed and limited scope and build bridges and partnerships with the other components of the agencies
Absolutely.
that will be able to complete the set, if you will?
Only with a Republican governor.
Republican
Because
government.
otherwise, Tim Walz is gonna continue staffing his agencies with the same people who are in there currently and are allowing
So
the
this is an
nation to
important
staff.
message from all of the upper level offices, right?
Every single office on the ballot should be taken seriously, no doubt
Yes.
about
Yes.
it.
Amen to that.
Every single office, including judges. And
Mhm.
Judges, yes.
yes, right, that's why we have to overturn jury convictions, right?
Yeah.
And including prosecutors. Going back to my point about working with prosecutors to prosecute fraud and increase the likelihood of that fraud being prosecuted. And back me up on this with your experience, but we can refer fraud to prosecutors all day long, but they still retain the individual discretion whether or not they're gonna prosecute it. And so, to your point, and the point that I was trying to make earlier, is we can build those bridges by doing things that the auditor already has the authority to do, and build and start task forces and bring people to the table and have those discussions.
We've lost volume.
Oh, you've lost volume? Okay. They're gonna have, can you guys take 2 scooches to the,
Yeah.
to the left?
No.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Get a little bit closer to the audio.
better?
Yes, that'd be great.
Can you hear us, Mary?
How's that, Mary?
Anything?
I muted her.
She lost it.
Maybe she completely lost it.
We'll keep going.
The question I have and the follow-up in the discussion, starting with you.
Sir.
Is you indicated that, there is a division within the larger organization of areas where the auditor is charged to oversee. Can you describe what is the defining line between these two functions? Are certain areas assigned or not assigned? If you could clarify that, I'd
Do
appreciate it.
you mind if I jump in on this one really briefly?
Well, first, go
I'll be
ahead.
super brief.
Okay.
I'll be super brief.
Hold on.
So the Office of the Legislative Auditor, have you heard of this within
Yeah.
Minnesota? They've been doing a lot of the exposing of this fraud recently, right? Why? Because they've been granted jurisdiction to oversee state agencies and conduct quarterly exams of certain books within the departments. Now, this is the craziest part. Legislators are the ones who are voting on which agencies to go and audit. So really, the same politicians who are enabling the fraud and financing it via legislation are also telling the OLA who they can go and audit. It's literally a backdoor scam to keep this hidden. It's smoke and mirrors.
My understanding though of the legislative audit function, what that's looking at is the statute will say, we want you to focus on these particular topics. The focus of that legislative audit is to say, are you spending
Right.
money on
Yeah.
what we talked about?
Correct.
So
They're
to-
not really doing an audit, like a fraud audit, they're not
Right,
fraud
yes.
auditors.
And they can't refer to prosecutors as well.
Wait, just one at a time, you go ahead then.
To your point, exactly, you're hitting on it correctly. That's one of the issues with this fragmented system that we have, is we also need to be cognizant of the fact that they're not doing an audit, like a line-by-line audit per se, like you would find for
It's
like.
not a fraud audit.
Yeah, no, it's a general, what are your minimum internal controls, standards, right? Do you have adequate oversight? Do you have adequate, checks and balances in your organization? Or can one person approve a purchase that they made, so on and so forth? And so, that's also part of the reason why there can be audits done, but they still won't uncover the fraud because they don't look deep enough to uncover it.
Well, they're not looking for it.
No, because they don't have to. That's not what they're technically told to be doing right now. They're doing high level, what is your financial position? Are you, is it sustainable? Are you spending what you're supposed to be spending? And do you have the money you're supposed to have? Those kinds of things. And so we would want to work with the legislature to give the state auditor's office more authority to dive deeper into the minutia and the details of local government finances, to be able to determine okay, for example, we just did one, we did our own in the city where I'm the mayor, city of Bram. And we found that, there was misuse of the gas pumps, city gas pumps. Okay, people weren't logging when they were using the gas pump. And so there was no way to tell whether that gas was being pumped into a personal vehicle or a city vehicle, okay? $9,000 worth, all right? And the state auditor's office, not to give them any credit that they don't deserve, but they just released a finding, I believe it was the city of Byron, where city staff members were using city credit cards and purchasing gift cards using the credit cards. Gift cards aren't traceable. And so, which is highly illegal and against accounting practices. And so, coming from local government, I know where to look for those kinds of things, which is what the state auditor should be looking for.
So,
Well,
as a follow-up to
Go ahead,
that.
and then I hear you, and then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, I'll be super brief. So that pales in comparison to the $1.1 million in golfing trips that DHS have had in the past year and a half alone.
What?
Yes, and when you uncover this stuff, not only do you have to be constantly filing data requests from these agencies, which we've already done. Since we announced on October 23rd, we've talked about fraud over 1,000 times more than Julie Blaha has in her entire tenure.
Yes.
The last time that she said the word fraud was in 2021, and she was referencing Iowa. Think about that.
The unfortunate thing with that is, it's a great point, but the unfortunate thing about it is it doesn't, again, it's not something that as a state auditor, he would have uncovered or I would have uncovered.
Just uncovered it, I'm not even.
Because it's not something that the state auditor's office looks at. So
That's part
it's-
of the citizen aspect, that we should be all helping.
Correct. So it's nice to say this is going on, but when we're talking about the role of the state auditor, it's, I don't think it's appropriate to use those examples to say that that's what we would be doing as a state auditor, because it wouldn't.
well,
Wait, Bon.
He's
Paul's
got
got a follow-up.
follow-up.
Go ahead.
The other point that I heard you guys agree on is that our principal function would be to focus on local government. And I'll use Carver County as the example. Carver County took away its local state auditor, county auditor,
Mhm.
transferred the functions to administrators. Do you know how broadly that has occurred within the state?
Extremely broadly. I mean, Hennepin, Ramsey, Dakota, the 7-county metro area, not only are they basically not interfacing with the state auditor, they've all created their own independent CPA firms who they're currently being audited through. And then they turn that over, those findings, that report, over to the state auditor, who just checks a box and says, yep, everything looks great. So when we're working within this fragmented system, we can't go and ask them to be a part of this, this roundtable discussion where we're gonna be cracking down on fraud. Like, they're a part of the problem. So instead, we need to go in Ramsey County, where 80% of the fraud is occurring, and we're gonna go and conduct those site visits. We're gonna go to a transportation networking company that's supposedly sending kids all over the metro who have autism and receiving tons and tons of money for it. And we're doing that right now, and we're not in the office, and we're uncovering this fraud. And then when we expose it, it forces the hands of either current elected officials, the legislature, or prosecutors to go and prevent and stop that. So we're being proactive, not just reactive. I think that the state auditor should be doing more of that.
Well, I can concur with that, but to me, if we're really looking at the larger issue, the first thing we have to do is begin to explain to citizens the structure we're operating and say, if we could do a map, say all these people have transferred all of their audit authority
Yes.
to the county commissioners, who have then appointed an administrator who has 3 levels down,
Mhm.
that if people need to have a better sense of the structure.
Right.
And this is not a new problem though.
Correct.
I'm an attorney, so I've seen some of these machinations at the local government level. And their first approach is just say no, you'll be gone because we're gonna put you up for election. You're gonna have it in 4 years, and you'll be gone.
I would even expand on that and
Yeah.
say, one of the things that I don't like, even in my hometown, we use a private auditing firm rather than having the state auditor do it. The state auditor can come in and audit local governments if they ask for it, but they still got to pay for it, which to me doesn't make sense. But the problem with using private firms or appointed officials is they're still accountable to whoever's paying the bill. And so, like, a private auditor is not generally going to go out of their way to say bad things about their client, right? They have to do the audit, and they have to send the report to the state auditor's office. But again, the state auditor's office is trusting whatever's in that private report.
Well, to me, the more fundamental issue, there is a profound difference between an audit and a fraud audit.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're truly,
Two different things.
totally different.
There's single issue audits, and which look at very specific things, like more like a fraud issue going on, and then there's comprehensive financial audits, which look at the bigger numbers. I think one of the things that I would like to introduce, if I were to be elected, would be a fraud risk score for local government entities. We have 3,300 local government entities in the state.
Really?
3,300. And so it by empowering the people with knowledge is power, by having a risk dashboard that people can go online anytime, and this could be refined and made 10 times better than how I'm describing it as a tech guy. But rating all of these local government entities on how they score when it comes to fraud risk. And so when local voters and residents and taxpayers, when they can see from an independent agency, so somebody not associated with their city, how their local government is rating on fraud and what their risk of fraud is, they can go back to their local government and hold them accountable and say, you guys need to do better, what's your problem?
The only issue with that idea, which is a good one, I will say, is that if you have a Julie Blaha in office, the only risk of being audited and found in non-compliance is if you are a red county or a red municipality. Because where the fraud is occurring, we'll have amazingly low risk scores for fraud.
Huh.
But Graham, Minnesota, with $9,000 in gas mispurchases, they're the ones that are in the state auditor's accounts right now. Not Hennepin and Ramsey County where all of this is occurring, right?
Let me ask you an interesting question. So let's talk, as I understand it,
Just-
the
just to
auditor
follow
is,
up on
are
that
you
point.
able to audit school districts?
Yes,
Right?
absolutely, it's part of the.
So when you talk about auditing these types of entities, do you look at the composition of what they're spending money on? I have a school board member that says, I'd like to
Nope.
request all their Amex bills and see how much coffee we buy.
Everybody is
Starbucks.
audited the same way.
Same way.
The same way. So you're talking about GAAP and AUP
Just
and
the
GASB.
regular ROI type
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. And if you don't know what those acronyms are, you should probably study up as a state auditor, because that's exactly how they do their job. And so, but to Elliot's point about my idea, that would be correct if we left it with the state auditor to choose who they're going to audit. But that's not the point. The point is to make it so that every entity has to have a risk score. And so there is no picking and choosing that way.
But at the end of the day, when they conduct an audit, it's not necessarily based off of a risk score, it's based off of a political tool, right?
But you
Keith
could use
Ellison
that
is in
to
the process.
conduct audits, to be proactive.
Sure, but again, an audit and a fraud audit, are two very different things. I think at the end of the day, you know what you're doing. You're a CPA, it sounds like you work in auditing as a day job. We have a bunch of CPAs in that office right now, but we don't have people who understand where the skeletons are buried and have come from the legislature, which has created all of those fraud issues.
They do know where the skeletons are buried, and their point is, they are to stay.
Shut up and call it.
buried.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do the opposite. We really do need to be a songbird just as much as we are a auditor as it currently stands under the current statutory definition. Now, if everything goes well and Dan Wolgamott lives up to his word, which I'm not counting on, we're going to have increased tools at our discretion as a state auditor. But if they're not there, we're not gonna take no for an answer. That's what we're promising.
Well, and to your point, you know, about skeletons in the closet, that's where it becomes important that I have the experience in local government. Because that's where the auditor is gonna be looking for skeletons. And so, you're not gonna find the skeletons in the closet if you're not looking in the right place to begin with. And so, again, you've gotta bring that picture back in focus and realize what the thing is that they're gonna actually be looking at, which is local government. And so having experience in that and knowing how to navigate that process and what the state auditor looks for, I know where people are gonna be trying to hide the skeletons.
Being up in St. Paul for the past 3.5 years, I can tell you, I've seen plenty of skeletons that you guys don't even wanna know about.
Do you have the ability to look at the Public Employees Labor Relations Act, the actual, would that be one area you could really examine?
100%.
What do you, just like looking at it or do anything about it? With
Doing an audit, a true audit of really where the union dollars are going. When the union dollars come in, and, because that's really the core, until we reform the Public Employees Labor Relations Act, that just takes the school district money directly into the political funding.
As long as it's public funds, then they have oversight.
So sitting on the pension commission as well would be a huge tool and an asset for that exact same measure that you're talking about.
But would the dollars that are contributed by, within the school district be considered public
Yes,
dollars?
yes they are.
Because that's where you could put together something that would begin to say we have to reform structurally.
Well, there's all kinds of areas, right? I mean, we've thrown the term around tonight, fragmented, right? So there's all kinds of areas that we could start trying to mend those gaps and build bridges, and that is absolutely just one of them. But it's important that we don't stay narrow-minded in scope on one issue when there's a plethora of issues and things that the state auditor's office is involved in. And to Elliot's point about sitting on boards, the state auditor's office sits on 7 state boards.
Which boards?
The
Pensions.
two biggest ones, State Investment Board and the Retirement Association Board. Both those determine where state money goes, right? Any state employees in the room, they determine where your pension funds are being invested.
And they're using ESG, exactly, yeah. They're trying to take out
Yep.
corporations that aren't lock in step with the leftist
Yep.
dogma. So, I mean,
Yep.
for example, the $730 million state office building, which will end up being closer to 1.2 billion when it's all said and done in 2028, that was approved and okayed by Julie Blaha as well. And that money is going towards a New York developer and contractor who also just so happened to be a huge financer of Tim Wells's presidential run. So that would be another, role or word of a state auditor that you'd want to have, is somebody who comes up and says that as it's going on, rather than learning about it in this room right now.
So Darren, did you have something right there? You've been looking like you had the cat with the canary.
I don't want to interrupt these guys.
No, please do.
No, please.
No.
You guys will have to hit Perkins after this thing's over. Keep the conversation going. I'm convinced that either of you would be a dramatic improvement for the state of Minnesota. There's no question. But for me, and again, I don't want to take a bunch of time here as an interloper from Hennepin County. I'm on the wrong side of the tax line. But we've in the last 48 years, we've had 2 Republican auditors. One was elected in Jimmy Carter's midterm,
Oh my gosh.
and he was then able to survive 2 Republican midterms.
Mhm.
And then the other being Patty Anderson, your colleague, who was elected in a Republican midterm, but it was after 9/11 when people were scared to death and voter turnout. It's the only time we've had a midterm where the president's party didn't get crushed.
Right.
Yeah.
All of this does nothing if we can't win the seat.
Amen.
Yeah.
And Ryan came very close, he was the closest of the constitutional officers,
Just over 8,000 votes.
but it was also in a Biden midterm. That was our shot, right? I mean, and so the question is the fraud and all of the 80-20 and 90-10 issues that we've got right now, is that gonna create a post 9/11 setting where we can, with a controversial president who is beloved in some parts of the state and reviled in others, how are you gonna get elected?
So I currently represent District 36A, Lionel Lake, Centerville, Circle Pines, White Bear Township, North Oaks, the last remaining Republican in Ramsey County. Kamala Harris won that district by 4.8 points. Tim Walz 5.5. Joe Biden 3.2. We won it by 10.4 points. Why?
This is your House district
Yes.
specifically?
Yes, we made a swing district, if not a blue district. I mean, bright red. The only Ramsey County precincts that were red are in our district right now. Why? Because we're speaking to a generation of disenfranchised voters that Donald Trump just used to win the White House. Gen Z Americans, the largest electoral generation right now in America, they went from a plus 25 Joe Biden voting block in 2020 to a plus 1.2 for Donald Trump in 2024, because he was speaking directly to them. And in 2022 in a midterm, when we had a 19% Republican drop off in voter turnout, largely it's because those same folks who were disenfranchised and want to see a broken system reformed stayed home. They didn't see somebody who was going to go in there and upset the apple cart. I think we're speaking right now to a generation of Minnesotans and Americans who are, quite frankly, just pissed off with politics. They don't maybe even align with a party, but they want to see somebody go in and actually try to restore some integrity back to the office. And that's what we're going to be really leaning into and utilizing as we go forward throughout this race, so we can win.
They're yours.
Yeah,
That's really great stuff, and you should absolutely be proud of that and receive all the credit in the world for that. It was great to help him get elected as a representative. That doesn't do anything to help him get elected in a statewide office as a state auditor. And what I bring to the table is a grassroots, common sense approach to governing. I have demonstrated success in local government and being able to turn situations around post-Democrat leadership. I've also been endorsed by the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, which brings with it blue votes and a bipartisan support block. And so anytime we have the ability to take votes away from the Democrats right from the get-go, that's blue votes for potentially everybody on the ticket on the Republican side. And so in addition to that, I have been in contact with people in Northeast Minneapolis who have a local fraud issue going on there that I've been helping them out with. And there is a growing in the heart of blue territory of people who are disenfranchised with the Democrat Party. And I have the opportunity to bring those people on board on the Republican side.
If I can get just to clarify,
Go
so when you said the band's endorsement, was that it for your current position? Was that that was not for this race yet?
That's this race.
So you've been endorsed for the auditor race?
Correct.
Well,
See, that's in here.
and this is just a bit of trivia, but then everybody in the room can say they heard it here first. So two of the past auditors have gone on to be governor, and Judy Dutcher also has launched an exploratory campaign to run for governor. Do either of you have sights on higher office at some point?
I'm gonna look like Mitch McConnell by the age of 28 at this rate. My wife would kill me, and I wanna be a dad, I wanna be a firefighter, but I wanna live in a government that I can actually trust. And right now, I simply can't. My greener pastures every single day look better and better because of just how bad Minnesota is. That's not my thing, but maybe you're gonna be running for governor.
No,
Cool with that too.
Excellent point. It's a dire situation, and I agree with Elliot. Next year is our chance to turn it around. And, I would love to be the guy to do that or help do that, but, I didn't get into politics with aspirations whatsoever to do anything. I'm here because it's a call to serve. I have a ring on my hand that says for the chosen few, because I was approached, I was asked to bring what I have and the skills and the experience what I have to help a bad situation and help my community. And if my community whether it be local or state, wants me to run for higher office, and there's overwhelming support for that, then I will. And as long as I have the support of my family, because my family comes first. So,
So I'm gonna ask a very tricky question here. So, all Republicans like to know, you're gonna abide by the endorsement at the statewide level?
yes.
And in which case, can we depend on the fact that you two gentlemen, who I agree with Darren, would be both equally wonderful to have in that office? Will you help each other?
Oh, 100%, 100%.
Define help.
Whatever you can do, we gotta
Yeah.
make sure we get, this is the year, we have to get it.
You're talking about in the campaign or in the
In the
office?
campaign or even in the office.
In the office as well.
In the office, you both have excellent individual qualities
Yeah.
that could make this really meaningful.
So, and I'll go back to my point earlier that I made when we first started, where I would love to work with Elliot as an auditor and him as a legislature, where he can do something to help change the law, and I can do something as a state auditor to advise what needs to be changed. I can't do that as a mayor, okay? And so when it comes to helping him, if he were to be elected as a state auditor, there's not a whole lot of help that I could offer in that kind of a position. Additionally, I want to point out, there's a reason why there's 3 either current or former mayors or council members running on the DFL side. Because the local elected official knows the job, and they know what to look for. And that's gonna be important, because that's who the DFL is gonna put up as a candidate. And if we don't have a candidate that can match that or do better, then the Republicans aren't gonna win that office anyway. And in that case, not only do we lose the state auditor's office, but we lose Elliott's seat on the House if we don't get a Republican candidate in that as well. And that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would say that there is a different reason why Democrats from local government are running for the office, and it's because nobody wants to touch the fraud issue with a 10-foot pole if they're right now in the legislature or in any other branch of government and they're a statewide DFL. I would also say that, you know, going back to the point of getting elected, we know how to do that. We've proven to do that in Democrat districts. We've proven to be a software update to the conservative message that really is not translating to the next generation. We know how to raise money. We've done over 1,500 individual donors in the first couple weeks since we launched our campaign. We know where the fraud is after sitting in the legislature for the past 3.5 years, and who's in on it that's currently in elected office, and we know how to use the bully pulpit. I think all of those things are real good reasons to go with us. And while, you know, at the end of the day, right now, the role is defined by municipalities and counties, we need this to be expanded to the state as well. And you don't need a statutory change to do that. 2 years ago, I sat down on a conference call with over 480 whistleblowers within DHS who've been trying to sound the alarm on fraud to whoever would listen. They've been in the news a lot recently, if you haven't seen. Even having a voiceovers that they remained anonymous on Fox News last week talking about fraud. We've tried to change the system from within, and you can't do it. It's just trying to protect and serve itself. You need somebody who has already worked with those partners, knows where the fraud is, and knows how to call it out. We're going to continue to do that in the state auditor's office, so I hope that you guys would entrust me with that.
I just want to make a comment. I have great hopes that we will have a trifecta. One of you guys will be elected, and that would be the best possible situation for an auditor. I hope the legislature will increase the authority so that you can do whatever you want to do. But it seems, I also have to say that what Elon Musk was doing was not just finding fraud. He's left his people in there, and they are establishing operating system audit systems so that they can go back next time and check every operation, every transaction. This is beyond GAAP.
Yep.
You have to check every transaction to see that it was authorized, went to the right person, at the right time, whatever was authorized to do. And, that's a big task. But that's what I hope you would do.
Can I respond to that?
Yes,
Okay.
please, go ahead.
So I was actually, it was about 2 weeks ago, I sat down with a gentleman who is contracted with the Federal Department of Human Services to basically create a blockchain style system to track and watch where dollars are flowing that are going towards Medicaid and Medicare programs. And he kind of let me know about how this internal system would work and if it could be brought to Minnesota, and I think it can. We've also sat down and talked with people from the America organization, which is Elon Musk's kind of Doge outfit organization. And I think that there could be a real national uprising of a state-level Doge system that calls out and exposes fraud wherever they see it. The issue is in the giant bill that was passed where Elon Musk and Donald Trump had a rift, right? It was still baked into the cake. All of that fraud was still going to be financed because they were signing a CR that was basically just going to copy and paste the previous administration's agenda.
Temporarily.
And so we need a state auditor that not only interacts and knows the inner workings of the legislative process to prevent the fraud and try to create inroads and networking opportunities with other legislators to stop it, but also has the exposure that Doge has really brought forward and made a big issue when it comes to waste, fraud, and abuse. So,
And I think that's a really great idea in concept, but again, we have to remember that the state auditor's office has to work within their constitutional scope and their statutory scope. So if the Constitution or the state statutes don't allow the state auditor to do something, then they can't do it. And they don't have the ability or the authority to just go and do whatever they want.
No, I'm saying if we have a trifecta, then you can change the statute.
Absolutely. But I would argue that I have experience working across political spectrums in achieving change. And we don't have to have a trifecta in order to implement change. It's just how you relate to people and how you interact with people and build those relationships. I have very far left-leaning council members on my city council back home, and I can get them to vote along with me on the most sensitive issues because it's about explaining, being honest, and truthful, and transparent, and understanding the greater good behind what it is that you're trying to do. And it doesn't have to be a party issue. It's about what's best for the Minnesota taxpayer.
So when I look up the Minnesota Constitution under the role of the state auditor, it genuinely says a 4-year term, a term serving 4 years. It doesn't say anything regarding its limitations or jurisdictional limitations when it comes to what Mr. George is talking about. What we would be doing if we went above and beyond our purview would be breaking statutory authority. And there is no criminal penalty for having done so. We did site visits already. We would do so as an entire division within the state auditor's office if we were entrusted with the office.
How can you, I have a problem with that, because how can you have credibility as an auditing agency if you're breaking the law to enforce the law?
We're going after criminals.
But to either of your knowledge, has an auditor ever challenged that? Because the Constitution overrides statute.
Right.
And so, it's the same thing with whether it's region selection and various things like that, where statutes have come in to mess things up, talking about terms and different things. You're not really breaking the law, you're challenging the authority of the statute.
Yes.
At which point, the courts will decide whether you're breaking the law, at which point then you obviously would either decide on a constitutional crisis or you follow the courts, which is probably a smarter thing.
But then, if the court rules against you, everything you've just done is pointless. It's it gets erased.
I don't know if I would, I'm not in the debate here, I apologize.
No,
But the fact is that Carlson was masterful at using the auditor's office as a bully pulpit, which typically isn't what you perceive of as the auditor. But there's a remarkable capacity. Jim Nobles was so polite, but very effective in the legislative auditor role, being able to point things out without necessarily offending the sides. But
Right.
But
they didn't break the law to do that.
well, but the point that I was making is you're not breaking the law, you're challenging the law. And
But if you're stepping outside your statutory authority, that is
But
breaking
your,
the law.
but your authority comes from the Constitution, not from the statute.
And the Constitution
And
does
so
not
this,
have.
so you have one branch seeking to limit, this is the whole thing going on in DC right now, this is what Trump is challenging, and of
Yeah,
course,
with
the
the war
left
powers.
says that, the
Right.
left says that he's, you know, causing a constitutional crisis and so on, but what he's actually saying is, well, no, I'm actually taking on things that the other branches have tried to impose on this position, but in any case, it's getting pretty lawyery in here.
Whoa.
No, not your fault, that's, I'll take full blame, but in any case, but I'm interested, you talked about, this feels a little bit like a job interview question, but when you talked about being able to reach across the aisle to the most liberal or progressive, more likely, you know, folks that are on your council, can you give us an example of what of one of those issues and how you were able to bring them along to get that sort of fundamental change in what was going on in your city?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, there's been a few, but if I were to pick one off the top of my head, recently we had an issue with, well, let's pick up the flag, for example, which is a hot button issue right now. And so when the flag was changed, there was, and that was not a local involvement in that whatsoever. But what I wanted to do was put a resolution that said that the city of Brand is going to maintain its historical flag and not move to the new flag. All right. This council member's wife is very much in favor of the Democrat Party and how they run business, and that influences how they make decisions on the council. But I had to do a lot of convincing in order to get that person over to my side to agree to do the resolution, stating that we disagreed with this mandate pushed down to our level, and that there should have been a better process for choosing our state flag. It wasn't about making it a partisan issue and saying, well, we just don't like the flag. We don't like the process. The process did not take into account the people's desires and how they feel about a symbol that is supposed to represent all of us, right? And so by having conversations like that, by finding the middle ground on what is the core issue that we can agree on, and that's what's best for all of us and what's fair for everyone, that's just an example of the type of conversations that anybody should be able to have, regardless of if there's a government trifecta or not.
Do you mind if I piggyback on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things that has been so overwhelming for me is how many Democrats are coming and saying that they're going to be supporting us, and have even donated or requested a lawn sign. Why? Because if you're a bleeding heart, compassionate liberal that wants to see the most vulnerable amongst us taken care of, you'd want to vote for a Republican state auditor who actually prevents those dollars from flowing towards criminals instead of, I don't know, housing stabilization services or autism centers or substance use disorder treatment centers, all of which are with less funds, if not shut down in its entirety right now, for fraud. And I think that message is going to be well articulated when we start up this 30 fraud sites in 30 days tour, where we're taking the public's insights and their allegations of fraud. We're doing our own investigatory searches into whether or not they're credible at all. And we're simply going to go with a video camera and a bunch of folks and say, hey, do you guys think that this is $14 million worth of your tax dollars that's actually providing services right now? Or is this an empty building in the middle of Wilmer, Minnesota that's claiming to be feeding starving kids? Like, that's what's coming up. And I think that's how we reach out across the aisle and bring people over. Is not by saying that we're going to be cutting programs because of this, that we're going to be fine-tuning where those dollars are flowing. And I think that's a pretty unique opportunity this election cycle.
So one thing I want to start wrapping up, but let's reflect on the people that are also running for auditor that aren't in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And can you
And one that
identify, can you identify one of the Democrat folks that are running? I mean, I know a couple, they've come up in conversation tonight. What do you think we can do to I know, make sure that they're not in office or the strongest opposition. What would you paint the other side of the tickets or whoever you're up against on the ballot? What would be your comparison against
They're the
them?
status quo. If you want more of the same, vote for the same party that's overseeing the fraud to continue to oversee it, but this time with a newfound promise to stop it. Like, why would we do that? Definition of insanity, right?
I'll take care of it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just expand on that even more. They're status quo, but they're not dumb about it either. And you know, and I made that point earlier about why there's local government officials on their bench, because the Democrat Party knows that a local government candidate is going to be the best fit for this role, because they're going to know the role best. They're going to be the ones that are going to be able to go in there on day one and implement change right away, because they know how that agency operates, how they do their job, and they can make good policy decisions based on knowing how the agency does their job. You can't do that if you don't know the job. And so it's not something that we should take lightly. To Elliot's point, why would we trust any Democrat to say that they're going to be better about it this time around? Absolutely, but nonetheless, here we are, and they have candidates, and I don't think we should take the local aspect lightly at all. We need to have somebody who's going to be comparable and can beat them on that level.
It's like trusting the arsonist with the firefighting,
Yep,
isn't
Exactly.
it? They burn it down, but they got the hose too.
And I'm a prior firefighter myself,
Are you?
so
Yeah.
I totally get where you're
Oh
going
my
with that.
gosh, crazy times.
They were just making room for the new development.
Don't get me started on those.
Boy, now
I
we're
didn't
really
bring
going
my
out on a
foil hat
tangent.
tonight. Jeez, Paul.
Talk about
Yeah.
tangents.
We do have a conspiracy theory bonfire in the spring typically. You're welcome to join us for that. Yeah, we've got plans for that one, but thank you for joining us. Any- You guys want to give a final thought, maybe? Or-
I went first.
Go
so
ahead,
you go first.
Yeah. Is it okay if I give you guys my cell phone? Please call me.
Sure.
I want to hear
Yeah.
from you. I want to do it in a setting where it's a little bit more time than when the roads are this bad and everybody needs to get home.
Okay,
So-
We're waiting for the plows.
Yeah, I need to get home and snowball, otherwise I'm gonna hear it from my wife. So my cell is 651-202-8702. Any questions, any thoughts, any ideas, please feel free to give me a call.
Well, I got a thumbs up online and says, thanks guys, great talks, good luck. Wow.
Was that it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all I
go
have.
ahead,
Okay.
Janet. Hey, go
What's
ahead.
your closing statement?
Yeah, well, I thought you wanted to say more.
Well, before you go, Elliot, are you a 1T or a 2?
2 Ts,
Okay.
yeah.
2 Ts.
Weird kind.
I have business cards as well. If you want one, please stop by, grab one. I have literature here as well. But my number is 651, and I'll wait for everybody to catch up, because I sprung it on you. So 651-276-1948. And that's on my business card too, so if you didn't catch it, come grab one, that's on there. All my information's on there as well.
So one more time?
651-276-1948.
Is Graham the pride place?
Homemade Pie Capital, Minnesota.
Okay,
Really?
that's what I thought.
I am the Carver County current champion in pie contest this
Oh.
summer. So.
It's not about.
Because Darren totally voted for me.
I did. I fully balloted all 3 tickets right into her box. Love it.
I would like to wrap up with a statement though, and just, again, thank you for inviting me out here and having this opportunity. This was great, and obviously we could talk about this stuff for days, and I think we have the same goals in mind, but we differ in how we want to go about doing that. And I think that's where the decision is going to be, is what's the best fit approach for how do we fix the problems at the state auditor's office and the auditing apparatus as a whole. And I think having that local experience, the full-time auditing compliance experience, it's going to give me the insight to be able to really make some solid changes going into Thank you. I appreciate it.
My fault for not checking in too much online. Sylvia or anybody, did you have anything to say?
I know.